Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, all distinguished guests in your respective capacities, ladies and gentlemen, I take the pleasure to thank the African Energy Chamber for organizing this year's African Energy Week and inviting me to make some remarks at this year's gathering. It also gives me great pleasure when I interact with you, the energy experts, the policymakers, and key partners on this critical component of the continent's economic development. I'm therefore glad to join you in this important occasion. I also want to recognize all the Africa Energy Week partners for the support given to ensure a successful event. Energy is a necessity for development of any society, and Africa, being the least developed continent in the world today, but now turning the curve towards development, requires energy more than any other continent. The discussion on energy access and development must therefore continue. So far, I think Africa has been the most responsible continent in terms of protecting the environment in as far as minimizing carbon emissions is concerned. With current data showing that Africa's current share of emissions is about 3.8% of the global emissions, in spite of hosting about 25% of the global population. For this, therefore, Africa should be applauded. Uganda's current energy mix is already dominated by renewables, including hydropower, solar, and the biomass. Our strategy is to continue developing more of these renewable energy resources while developing our oil and gas, which will provide the much needed revenues for development, and also a liquid petroleum gas that will help in saving forests and improving the livelihoods of our people. You may also wish to note that only 10% of the Alberta in Graben is licensed, and other potential basins are also under consideration. As we talk about energy, the main challenge for Africa now is how to achieve universal access to reliable, affordable, and modern energy for our people, as well stipulated in the Sustainable Development Goals, and I am sure it is aligned to the development plans of all the countries on the continent. My expectation is therefore that this conference provides a forum for that kind of discussion. The current energy situation caused by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, where we are seeing developed countries resuming the use of coal and energy prices escalating, demonstrates the importance of energy in the smooth operations of society and should teach Africa a lesson in ensuring that it pursues energy independence. It also underlines the need for the transition to be handled in a systematic manner that addresses issues of demand and supply of this important resource. For Uganda, production of oil has taken a long time for deliberate planning and preparation since 2006, when commercial discoveries were made. This was also meant to ensure that our country undertakes all the required legislative and other reforms for the sustainable extraction of the country's oil and gas resources. With its rapidly growing population, Africa will continue being a growing market for goods and services, including energy. It is therefore unsustainable for the continent to continue being a net exporter of crude oil and net import of refined products. African resources should therefore be able to meet the demand for energy of the continent. I'm therefore glad that African countries are now realizing they need to work together to address the continent's energy needs, and as such, the African Union has adopted an African Common Position on Energy Access and Just Transition that sets out a pathway to accelerate universal energy access and transition for the continent without compromising its development imperatives. The Common Position recognizes that Africa needs to continue deploying all forms of its abundant energy resources, including renewable and non-renewable energy, to address energy demand. The agreed position recognizes the fact that Africa is well endowed with abundant energy resources, both renewable and non-renewable, and it is only fair and responsible that in pursuit of development, all these resources should play a role. Secondly, it also recognizes the fact that Africa is aware and is committed to the global obligation to minimize greenhouse emissions that are responsible for climate change. Despite the above reality, we still have some actors in other parts of the world who have arrogated to themselves the right to lecture Africa on the exploitation of its natural resources and pursuit of development. You should have heard of a recent resolution by the European Union Parliament purportedly stopping Uganda and the United Republic of Tanzania from developing the East African crude pipeline, oil pipeline, and Uganda's oil and gas projects. The above is a stark demonstration of either ignorance or disregard for Africa's energy and development needs, and is a clear indication that Africa has to work hard if it is to achieve its development aspirations. Definitely Africa will continue working with global partners, but this should be premised on mutual respect and partnership. For Uganda, we are proceeding with the oil and gas development despite the attempted disruptions by the arrogant actors. Commercializing the country's oil and gas will provide funds for the development and investment in the more renewable energy sources and the achievement of energy access for all Ugandans. In addition, the project will produce liquefied petroleum gas, which will be key in providing a cleaner cooking energy source that will save forest cover that are being lost rapidly on account of charcoal and firewood. We think the emphasis should now be on how we ensure minimizing emissions from the oil and gas operations and not stopping the development of oil and gas operations. For Uganda's case, we are happy with the project developers who have designed projects to technologically generate the lowest possible carbon footprint. As a result, overall, the projects fall within the category of low emissions. The carbon dioxide equivalent emission per barrel for Uganda's upstream and midstream projects is estimated to be 2045 carbon dioxide. This is well below the global average of 70 to 100 kilograms carbon dioxide equivalent. However, for Africa to be able to effectively exploit its energy resources, it will need to overcome some structural bottlenecks. In the first place, there is a need to make arrangements for the required financial resources to fund the projects, develop the necessary technology, as well as build the capacity of its people. The continental market should also be exploited by empowering the people to be able to consume the energy, including oil and gas produced on the continent. Africa should go to this year's COP27 in Egypt with a common message that clearly articulates the development and energy needs of the continent. Africa can't continue being the dark continent of the world. Besides, those who think we should not develop our petroleum cannot be serious, because even when we stop using petroleum as fuel for cars, for transport, or for power stations, we shall need petroleum products for other uses, textiles, fertilizers, medicine, tar for the roads, plastics. So we know when to do what. We are aware of the misuse of carbon products. We are not the ones who started this. We here in Uganda, we have not been connected with the outside world until about 140 years ago, when we started linking up with the non-Africans. At that time we had our technology, which was very clean, solar, wind, the biomass. These hydrocarbons were brought by some other people who brought them, and apparently brought them with some recklessness. But now we know. We shall go back to our indigenous energy, solar energy, which is our ancient source of energy, the wind, the hydro, which was a new knowledge to us, the geothermal, but also the hydrocarbons, if they are used correctly, they are very useful. We don't want any stampede. We are studying, and we shall use our hydrocarbons well for a long time, even if we stop using them for transport. Carbon is part of nature. All living things have carbon in them. Therefore, the problem is not carbon, the problem is the greed of those who run around looking for money, regardless of human life or logic. I therefore wish all of you a successful conference as we work together towards a united and prosperous Africa. I thank you.